Welcome to the Disrupting Obesity podcast. I'm Charlotte Skanes, and I'll be sharing ways to regain control over your body and lose an extreme amount of weight naturally. Being fat is about so much more than just the food. It's about your relationship with food. That means that dealing with your weight is about more than just the food, too. You have to change that relationship. You have to start disrupting obesity. Welcome to Ask Whatever 18. These episodes are always so much fun, so keep the questions coming. There are no bad ones. Even if you think I've probably already answered it, just send it in anyway. I like repeat questions because I can come at things from a different angle. We've got slightly fewer questions this time around because some of the answers are a little longer than usual. Next week's episode wasn't supposed to be an Ask Whatever, but this episode was just so long I decided to cut it in half and add a GFY Gladys. This one's still coming in a little longer than usual though, so let's just get right to it. How do I calculate the number of calories I should eat to be in a deficit? Your tracking app will do this when you set it up, but I suggest using an online TDEE calculator to get your answer. Your TDEE is your total daily energy expenditure. It's the number of calories your body burns every day. To be in a deficit, you want to eat 500 calories less than your maintenance TDEE. When you're entering the information, though, be honest about your activity level. Don't say that you work out 5 days a week so you can have more calories. I mean, it's great that you'll have more calories, but you also won't lose weight. On the flip side, don't say that you're sedentary if you're working out 3 times a week. You won't have enough calories. You're going to feel like total shit, and you're way more likely to give up. So let's not do that either. What's your advice to keep yourself on track when you have a lot to lose? So that's my whole jam. That's why I'm here. After the whole almost dying thing, when I was looking for a way to make my second chance worth something, I asked myself what I was good at, and I'm good at losing weight. But it was pointed out to me really early on in this whole process that the weight loss space, the market, it's more than just slightly crowded. I obviously didn't need it pointed out because I've been super pissed off with the toxic diet industry complex for years now. And I've got no interest at all in entering those waters. What I am interested in is speaking out for the person who feels like I did, alone and scared with a lot of weight to lose, and a whole industry that seems focused on helping people with a fairly small amount of weight to lose. I looked around and I couldn't see anything that would have helped me when I had 115 pounds to lose, and absolutely nothing that would have helped me when I had 200 pounds to lose. I wanted to fix that because losing 25 pounds and losing 180 aren't the same thing. And I'm very sick of them being treated like they are. So recognize that your journey's harder. 3A, weigh it. Let this be your awareness, right? Losing a small amount of weight and a large amount aren't the same thing. They're very different experiences. So that's awareness done. We can acknowledge that, your second A. It's not feeling sorry for yourself to acknowledge that it's going to take you longer to lose your weight, and it's going to require a completely different mindset than taking off like the freshman 15, right? That's just a statement of fact. I'm not marginalizing anyone's journey. I'm just trying to say out loud something that I think has somehow, I don't even know how, but it's somehow been forgotten among all the noise coming out of the toxic diet industry. And it's to the detriment of anybody who has a significant amount of weight to lose, right? Because we're looked at like it should be easy and it should be fast, and it's neither of those things. We're marginalizing the journeys of anybody with a lot of weight to lose when we act like it is. Losing any amount of weight is hard. Period. If you've always weighed $105 and your weight shoots up to 130, that's going to suck for you. And it has its own set of particular mindset challenges, but it's not the same thing as staring down 60, 80, 100, or 200 pounds. They're very different experiences. And it's very okay to acknowledge that. I would argue that it's necessary. Because the next step is accountability. That's the part where you do something about it. But you can't change what you can't see. And going into something as complicated and difficult as losing a significant amount of weight with blinders on, in the form of a very skewed set of expectations about your weight loss journey, is anything but helpful. And it's definitely not setting you up for success. You've got to go into this with your eyes open. I talk about plateaus all the time. And a huge part of the real problem with plateaus is that we're really talking about skewed expectations. When you expect to lose your weight quickly, when you expect to lose it consistently and in large amounts, and that doesn't happen, it really messes with your head. It's harder to stay focused when you're feeling disappointed in yourself, but it's not about you. It's the process. Losing weight is a process and things happen, like not losing your weight in a straight line, like it taking longer than you probably want it to. Focus on the things you're getting right. Staying on track when you've got a lot to lose is about staying focused on the track itself. And it's about keeping yourself focused on those little wins, the little things that you're getting correct and that you can feel positive about. Do you have issues with loose skin? Did you do anything to address it? So I knew before I started losing weight that loose skin was going to be an issue for me, at the very least with my arms. I carried my weight all over and my arms were huge. Compared to the rest of my body, I feel like they still are. I tried to be proactive about it, but I've always known with my arms, no matter what I did, surgery is probably going to be the only way out there. So I drank a lot of water. Hydration is pretty key for your skin. I moisturize like crazy, not fancy stuff, just whatever I could find in a clearance cart at Walmart or Shoppers Drug Mart, and just all over. I moisturized my whole body pretty much every day. I lost my weight slowly. That wasn't really a choice. I didn't qualify for gastric surgery back then, and I wasn't willing or able to go to extremes to get the weight off. Genetics are the biggest factor, and I've been told by a couple plastic surgeons now that I hit the jackpot there. I have about half as much loose skin as they'd expect for someone who's lost the same amount of weight that I have. So that's the next step. I do want to have some of my loose skin removed surgically. I don't know what the timeline is going to look like, but I'm hopeful it'll be fairly soon. I used to believe that maybe I deserve to have to deal with my arms for the rest of my life. I have as much loose skin on them as I have actual arm. So they're a thing for me. And I thought maybe I should have to wear them like a scarlet letter, right? But I don't believe that at all anymore. So until I can have surgery, I wear a lot of compression garments. There are some pretty inexpensive ones out there now. But with my arms, even a tight shirt with the right fabric can cinch them in a bit. It's not just there, though. I have loose skin on my face, which is why I'm terrified of Botox. I'm afraid that the skin will just slide. I'm also terrified of the recovery process from the thigh revision for loose skin. I got a whack a bit there too, but with everything my body has been through, I kind of feel like I need to prioritize, and my thighs just aren't it. So I'm planning on dealing with some of it and leaving some of it alone. My advice to address it is to moisturize inside and out. Don't lose your weight super fast, and know that there are solutions for you if you do end up with loose skin too. When, if ever, did you start exercising? What about now? So this pisses a lot of people off, but I'm never going to shut up about it. I didn't exercise at all to lose the weight either time. I didn't exercise casually. I moved into a building with an elevator. I got a sedentary job. Even when I hit the point where it would have been physically easier to exercise, I didn't do it. When I was over 300 pounds, exercise was torture. I'm not coordinated and I'm pretty short. Any kind of movement when I was over 300 pounds was fairly strenuous. Forget about crossing my legs at the knee. That had been over for a long time. I couldn't even really cross my legs at the ankle anymore. I'd get winded bending down to tie my shoes. Like I'd have to come up for air between feet. And I know that seems funny to some people. And I guess the image of it kind of is. But I remember how it felt, and it was embarrassing and scary. If there wasn't a bench or a chair that could hold me, or like even a flight of stairs, right? I'd have to lean up against a wall and bend over to tie my shoes because it would be too hard and even more embarrassing to get down on the floor and do it that way. And I hated feeling like a spectacle. Where I'm from, extended goodbyes at the front entryway are just a thing, which is not a ton of fun when it's got a high humiliation potential. Right? When I'm putting on my shoes in front of other people. But it was physically taxing whether or not I had to tie them. So open backed slip-on shoes kind of became my absolute favorite thing. But tying my shoes was, that was Sean's breaking point. It was the only time he ever said anything to me about my weight. And that was just to tell me that he'd seen me struggling to breathe when I was tying my shoes and it scared him. We were still just kids. We were like 22, 23, I think, but we'd been together at that point for like 4 or 5 years. And we wanted to be together for the rest of our lives. He didn't want mine to end before we even really gotten started. I've actively hated exercise for most of my life. I've hit the point where I've talked myself into almost kind of liking it because I need it so badly. I'm not physically able to exercise strenuously or anything at this point, but I have secondary diabetes and walking really helps me to manage it. I'm also dealing with muscle atrophy stuff, and I have been for years now. Just when I hit the point where I was physically starting to get strong and build muscle after my 5-month hospital stay and years long recovery at home, I got sick again and ended up back in the hospital. And just when I started to recover from that, I got sick last summer and I had a couple surgeries, and I'm working now to come back from that. So I don't formally exercise. It probably looks more like physio from the outside looking in, but any movement you can add to your day is a good thing, right? Earlier, I mentioned wanting to make my second chance worth something by helping other people. I was hospitalized with a major illness while obese, and I don't want anybody else to go through that. I want to do everything I can to help you avoid it. I didn't get sick because I was fat, but being fat made every other single thing about my time in the hospital and my recovery harder. I've talked about that before. Episode 21. It's all about my time in the hospital. But I'm going to say this again for the Gladyses at the back. Any movement that you can add to your day is a good idea. And if I hear from a single Gladys about this next bit, you will be blocked instantly. And that's not the way I usually handle your kind. But I've got zero threshold for any bullshit when it comes to ridiculing anybody who's trying. If you don't get it, that's fine. But zip it, because obviously this advice isn't for you. Exercise and movement aren't the same thing. You, my flamingos, we're not talking to Gladys for the rest of this whole segment. She's not allowed to be here. You understand that moving from the couch to the bathroom can feel like hard work. The bigger I got, the harder it was to move, the more energy it took. And that's not your imagination if you feel that way. That's just science. The bigger you are, the more mass you're moving, the more calories your body burns to operate, right? Adding movement consciously is big for your mindset too, because you're reinforcing any of the changes that you're making to your relationship with food by coming at the issue of your weight from more than one approach. I'm not suggesting you start doing laps, but you could do something like see how many times you can raise your arm during a commercial. You can lift your feet and march in place while you're sitting and doing the crossword. There are little things you can do that definitely aren't formal exercise that can make a difference, that can help you to slowly get stronger. I take a lot of shit because I tell people they can lose weight without exercising, that the whole diet and exercise thing is a myth. It's still true, whether you add movement or you don't. And I keep saying it not to be divisive, but because it's the truth and because I want to use that truth to give people hope. When you tell people that they have to exercise to lose weight, which is still a lie, by the way, no matter who believes it or how often they say it, it is still a lie. When you tell people they have to exercise to lose weight and that person can't or won't exercise, what then? What's their option? Where's their hope? I mean, I get that that's the way you may want them to do it, but that doesn't make the myth true either. This is kind of like the ultra processed food thing. Isn't it better if someone loses their weight eating ultra processed foods and actually lose their weight than to try and go on a strict whole foods diet and give up after 3 months? Well, it's the same deal with exercise. Isn't someone better off to lose their weight by controlling their calorie intake with food than to not lose their weight? The whole my way or the highway shit thing, it's got to go, right? It has to go. You don't have to exercise to lose weight. So I'm going to keep saying it. And now, because two things can be true at the same time, even if they seem to contradict each other, I'm also going to keep telling my story and sharing how hard it is to fight for your life when you're also dealing with obesity. I'll keep telling you that the more muscle you have on your body, the better off you'll be. If only because the more muscle you have, the higher your basal metabolic rate and total daily energy expenditure are, and the more calories you'll have to play with each day. The more muscle you have, the less likely you are to get injured. You'll also have more muscle to lose if you end up sick. Everybody thinks that atrophy moves slow. It does not. It just doesn't. Muscle atrophy can start to set in as few as 10 days of bed rest, and you can blow through 12% a week. I didn't lose the ability to walk because of my pancreas or my crash C-section or the Ogilvie syndrome. I lost the ability to walk and stand and sit and roll from my back to my side because when my pancreas decided to pull its little fast one and the whole cascade of other things started happening too, I had so little muscle to lose. I mean, sure, I was pushing 250, if not a bit higher, but it wasn't muscle. So what little I had disappeared in a hurry, and they needed a massive sling and a team of people to move me around because I didn't have the muscle tone to do it for myself. Even if I'd been fit when I got sick, I was so sick for so long, it was going to get really bad no matter what. But it got worse fast because of the shape that I was in. I started off a little bit ago saying that two things could be true at the same time. So even though all of that happened, it's still more important to me that people get the message that they don't have to exercise to lose weight. Because for so many of us, exercise feels impossible. It's a massive barrier to weight loss, and it doesn't need to be. So if that's your narrative, if you're telling yourself that you can't lose weight because you don't want to exercise or you can't exercise, it's okay. You don't have to. You also can't use it as an excuse to not get started losing weight, though. I used it as an excuse for a while. In my case, it was just self-sabotage. I wanted to keep eating the way that I was. I told myself again and again that since I didn't want to exercise, there was no point doing anything else, right? Why bother? I wasn't going to lose any weight. And yeah, to every Gladys who pops up when I talk about this and tells me that it was just an excuse. Yeah, I know. I know, right? That doesn't change the fact that that's how I felt. I was extremely fat. I was very afraid and very down on myself. I was down just generally. Feeling like weight loss was out of reach didn't exactly strengthen my resolve. Did you only drink water before 6 p.m. when you started eating for the day? Okay, so this one is referring to my intermittent fasting window. I lost my weight eating whatever I wanted, but only at night. I ate from like 6 p.m. until sometime between midnight and 1, 2 a.m. With intermittent fasting, the deal is that you don't take in any calories until you break your fast, or I call it your eating window, right? So you don't take in any calories until your eating window opens. I didn't only drink water until 6 p.m., but I did only drink things with no calories. And that's really at the heart of this question. You don't have to stick to water. I know there are voices out there saying that, but it's just not true. No calories. That's it, right? I drank a ton of Diet Cola when I lost my 200. Water's always been a struggle for me, and I couldn't take that on and take the food on at the same time. I also couldn't let go of pop and try to modify what I was eating. It wasn't going to work. It had to be one thing at a time for me. Liquid calories, just the way I think, liquid calories and solid calories are just separate things in my brain, and I had to come at them differently. So I met myself where I was. I was drinking 4+ liters of pop a day before I started losing weight, and I wouldn't have lasted a week if I'd tried to only drink water. And the whole landscape for non-water, but still no calories, that is so much better now. There are so many different sweeteners to choose from, and those sugar-free syrups are amazing, right? I had very few choices. So technically, when it comes to intermittent fasting, you break your fast as soon as you take in any calories. So if you're being a purist about your windows, you need to stick to 0 calories until your eating window opens. I'm going to briefly mention this one again. I know I've talked about it before, but if your morning coffee is critical, if it's just a key part of your day, don't change it for the sake of a few calories. Don't do it. Like, I've talked to people who are agonizing over like 40 calories worth of creamer, and that juice just isn't worth the squeeze. So long as everything else you take in has no calories until your window opens, I vote leave the creamer alone. It's not worth getting your day off on the wrong foot every single time for the sake of a few calories. This isn't a mindset battle that you need to fight. Weight loss isn't about restriction and willpower. It's about little choices and continuing to meet yourself where you are, where you actually are. So keep the coffee if it'll help you keep your peace of mind. Okay, so I have a series I do on Instagram called Foods That Help Me Lose 200 Pounds. It's recipes mostly or swaps I made that help slash the calories from one thing so I had more calories for something else, that kind of thing. One of those videos is for something I call TT muffins. They're just these carrot raisin muffins that the boys and I are crazy about. And I've modified the recipe and kept all the flavor of my original recipe, but they're only 82 calories each. Okay, the stage is set. Enter Gladys. This is an exact quote. "I'm sure those muffins were a weight loss food for ya," said no one ever. "I'm pretty sure a big fatty wouldn't lose any weight from those muffins." All right, so we have some super fun stuff to dive into there. We could start with one of my favorite Gladys character traits, the name calling, such a hallmark of maturity. But I think we're going to ignore that part because it's not a reflection of anybody other than Gladys. And here's the thing, Glads. Anybody can lose weight eating anything, so long as they're in a calorie deficit. Even my 82 calorie muffins. When I started losing weight, I had 3,000 calories a day to play with. The entire batch of 24 TT muffins is 1,964 calories. So I could basically eat all of those muffins, both dozen muffins, and a couple of Big Macs and still be in a deficit, which means I was losing weight that day. Good for you, Gladys. That's what this big fatty has to say. Did you keep tracking calories once you met your goal weight? No, I didn't. After nearly 2.5 years, I had it down pretty well. Like, I knew the calories for the majority of stuff I ate and I could ballpark things most of the time, but I really didn't need to. I also kept a close eye on the scale, so I knew if I was going off track. And I did the work on my relationship with food. I learned to recognize when I was using food to comfort, reward, or cope, and I leveraged it to my advantage. I started getting really specific. I learned to see patterns in which foods I reached for when I was dealing with different kinds of emotions. The ways I would do things like not feel satisfied until I had something salty and then something sweet. Once I recognized it, once I could see those things, I could make sure that when I did recognize what was, that I was caught up in one of my patterns or trying to comfort myself, I could make sure that I ate the right thing for that situation. Like when I want to feel close to my dad or I'm dealing with grief-related feelings generally, if I don't just start off eating one of those things or the types of things that I typically eat to deal with my big grief feelings, I'm just going to end up eating a whole bunch of other stuff instead. Tracking stopped being a necessary thing because the way I felt about food changed. The way I thought about food changed. I didn't have the same physical capacity for food, and I didn't need the same amount of food to satisfy myself emotionally, mostly because I was aware of the emotion that I was trying to feed. Being aware of it increased my overall satisfaction in a very big way. After I gained back about 115 pounds, got sick, almost died, came home, had to lose a bunch of weight again, I started tracking again, very actively. Once I got the weight off, I stopped. When I gained 17 pounds during COVID and unlocked a whole new subset of fears, I tracked to take that off, but I don't track now. I only lost 4 pounds this month. I'm so disappointed in myself, but a loss is a win, right? Yes, a loss is still a win. Also, your feelings are totally valid, so don't add another emotional layer. Like, don't be disappointed in yourself for being disappointed in yourself. Don't add that layer to it. Your disappointment is valid. It's not correct, technically, but it's totally valid because of the way that you've been programmed, because of our toxic diet culture. We've been told over and over that we have to be losing a lot of weight quickly to do it properly, and that sells a lot of products, but it's not true. A pound a week is very good. It's better than very good. It's ideal. It's exactly what you want to be happening, even though it feels catastrophic. Maintaining your weight is a win too, and it gets overlooked a lot. I know it doesn't always feel that way, but when the scale stays the same, it's a win. Tracking calories isn't easy. It takes time to do it accurately, right? Be patient with yourself and try really hard in those moments of disappointment to turn your thoughts to something positive that you are accomplishing. I want to help you rack up as many wins as you can and keep yourself on track. So grab a copy of my free guide to getting started for the last time through the link in the notes. If you're looking for more help, there's the program. It's 53 weeks to overhaul your relationship with food and learn how to keep your weight off. If you've got questions, don't be afraid to reach out for anything. Keep trying, keep tracking, don't be intimidated, and don't give up. You totally got this. Thank you for listening to Disrupting Obesity with Charlotte Skanes. If you know it's time to take back control, lose the weight, and keep it off, reach out to me privately with a direct message on Instagram that says ready, so you can start disrupting obesity.